This current chapter of my life, you could call it whiplash. So from going to my first ever headlining tour, in churches, the My Jesus tour sold out, the whole tour sold out, insane, to then being on my very first ever country tour. Going from that to that, it's just, that alone has been such a crazy journey and so surreal feeling to be on two different stages, from, being on at a bar, in a club, in a church, and saying the exact same message on all the stages. It's really cool. I feel like with the vision of Rebel and the record and where we have been heading, it felt like for me it was a strategic move to go be a part of a country tour. I want to take my message to the world, and that might mean stepping on a different stage than a church, being a part of a country tour versus just a Christian tour. And while I love the opportunity to be on Christian tours and headline, sometimes it was like, well, we can headline, or I can be a part of the Scotty McCreery tour and get an opportunity to share the gospel with more people that may have never heard of the gospel before, or may have never, come if it was at a church, but because it's these venues, it's an opportunity to share that with people. I was scared on the Scotty tour. I remember calling my manager and being like, what if they boo me off stage? Like, I literally just didn't know what to expect. I was scared. I was nervous. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to share the gospel on a stage where no one else is. And where people, the people that come to these shows are wanting to have fun, not necessarily hear about faith, which you can do both. And that's what we did. But it was hard to have the courage to get up there and do it, but it actually went over really well. I was so pleasantly surprised. I was going to share my message regardless of whatever the response was. That's who I'm about and that's what Rebel's about. But it was really cool to see the response from the crowds, and even hearing testimonies of people that had been a part of that show and had never heard my music before, and they messaged me saying, hey, your song impacted me and led me closer to God, and I gave my life to Christ tonight. And those stories are really cool to hear. And then when I got out there and I saw Scotty perform, it was like, wow, he does the same thing. He shares the gospel. He's so bold in his message of faith. And then at that point, it didn't feel like foreign territory. It felt supernatural. I really do feel like my vision is being brought to life through getting to play stages like Tortuga and then playing at a church. It's like getting to bring the gospel to people versus them coming to me has been really cool. I think it's also grown me a lot as an artist. It's brought me out of my shell, I think, out of my comfort zone. I think it's easy to preach to the choir, to preach the gospel to people who already know him. But when you're taking it to people who don't, it's a completely different thing. And it can be hard sometimes. It can be hard to get up on those stages and share the gospel, just being completely honest. But when I do, I'm always so grateful that I did it. And I feel like, just getting to do it alone is great, but then getting to hear the stories of people makes it worth it. I'm like, oh, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's to share the gospel with the world. And the life of Jesus would go to the prostitutes and the tax collectors and the least of these. He wouldn't go to the Pharisees and the religious people. And Jesus was all about going to those people, loving them, welcoming them in with arms wide open, showing them so much grace and forgiveness, inviting them to the table, saying, hey, come be with me. And so as I was creating this vision for Rebel and stepping into it now and getting to play these songs live, it feels like the same thing. Following Jesus makes me a rebel. Following after him, walking in the footsteps that he walked is me going out of the four walls of the church and sharing the gospel with the world, whether that's at a bar or a theater or whatever. It's just doing that is following Jesus. And it's been cool to really obey the gospel of what he says to all Christians, to go out into all the world and preach the gospel, and to get to do that is really cool.